What did Florian tell you about your character? Because I think it's a very personal project for him. I think it's dedicated to his son.
Yeah.
So what steering did he give you?
He gave me a lot of steering. He's a wonderful director. He's got great vision. And he basically told me, he said, I don't think you have to feel you have to go too far from yourself. He encouraged me we didn't rehearse. I'm someone who likes to do a lot of research. I did some, and he was like, well, you can if you want, but I don't think this is very far from your imagination. He said, he's a good man who is really struggling in this situation because of the scars of his own upbringing and being completely overwhelmed, out of his depth, but refusing to admit that he's not going to be the one to fix things, to make things better, to save his son. And so he ends up making some decisions, which I don't want to give it away, which are very, very hard decisions. But all along, even if misguided, he's a good man.
Why didn't you rehearse? I mean, that seems to me weird because you're a theatre man, he's a theatre man. Yeah. Surely that's what you do.
I think the intensity of the scenes, the immediacy of that, the rawness of the scenes, he didn't want us to go into any scene with a preconceived idea of where we need to get to. So even in filming it, and I ultimately found it very freeing. I was nervous about it at the beginning because they're very intense scenes and there's many of them. So for me, rehearsal is not so much about cracking a scene, but about modulating an entire performance, because even though it's a 2-hour movie, you're shooting it over 3 months. So it can help modulate. But we would start scenes and have no idea where they were going to go. He wanted us to trust each other as actors, trust the words on the page, and just trust what we were genuinely feeling, whatever emotion we were genuinely feeling. And I ended up finding it very freeing.
Did it take you to some uncomfortable places? Because as a viewer, you certainly have that experience. As a performer?
Definitely. I would have categorized myself, and I guess the style of acting that I learned was one where it's real, you're feeling things, and you find triggers to help you get there, and then you healthily get out of it. So you're not carrying it home with you and, putting that onto your family or friends. And I found with this it was difficult. I was having a lot of sleeplessness. I found my father passed away during the film, so there was a lot of stuff going on for me personally, and thankfully I had my family with me in this COVID bubble that we were in, because that really, really helped. But it was surprising where this role took me, and there were times when we were filming where I felt very raw, vulnerable, and the blurred line between Hugh Jackman and Peter Miller was certainly very blurry.
Have you ever experienced that before?
A couple of times. Once on The Fountain, what I did with Darren Aronofsky, another very intense film. And in some ways I embrace it. I think in this case, I talked a lot with Florian about it, and I embrace it because I'm lucky in a way as an actor. I think as an actor or even as a viewer, we go to these movies and you may get caught up in the story, but it's also a way for us to sort out turmoil within or questions you have within. And so I don't know the answers when I'm going in, but I just trust the process that somehow this is all meant to be. And there were certainly times, Simon, where I remember the first day of filming, for some reason, some line in one of the scenes, I just broke down crying. And it was completely inappropriate for the scene. It's not in the movie, it got cut. And even after he called cut, I couldn't stop crying. It took me about 5 minutes, and I was a little embarrassed and very surprised. And he was like, this is just fine, let's just keep going. And so right from day one, I knew that this was going to be different.
Has that ever happened before?
No, that's never happened before, no.
Do you think it's an intense film. I imagine it was an intense set and an intense filming experience. I wonder how much of that comes from COVID and lockdown.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the fact that globally we've all had the same experience, over a long period of time, how that's affected storytelling. It's not directly referenced in your film, but do you think it affected the performance and the intensity that you're talking about?
I think it's a great question. You're the first one to ask it, and I think it's something that we're seeing across the board. I think the effects of COVID, psychologically, emotionally, on society are far greater than I think we'd anticipated. I was with a friend last night, Ian Rickson, a theatre director, and he was saying to me that coming straight out of COVID, he noticed the resilience of the actors wasn't the same. Because when you're on a treadmill of working, there is a resilience. And what comes with the resilience is also maybe some walls, So going in for first time working for 18 months, being with people for the first time in 18 months, even though we were wearing masks and we had to be careful, working on scenes of this kind of intensity, it felt unfamiliar in every way. I didn't feel I had resilience. I didn't feel I had the control. And I think ultimately, if I could analyze myself as an actor, that's probably a good thing. I think I can be a little bit too in control sometimes.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.